Hey, it's Kirk Langford, General Manager at Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems. We're here with another episode of Leader Feeder, and today we want to talk a little bit about how to resolve people who are butting heads on your department, or what to do when people butt heads in your department or on your team. So we're going to talk a little bit about conflict management. There's lots of different methods for this, so I'm really just going to give you a couple strategies that I think will help, because a lot of frontline leaders get good at managing conflict, and when I say they get good, what I mean is that they end up always having to resolve the conflicts of the people on their team. It's not really a situation that you want to get into if you can help it, and hopefully some of these tips or strategies are going to help you get away from always having to be the problem solver on your team. So the first thing you want to do is be willing to listen and, here it is, let people vent. As a frontline leader, you spend a lot of time putting out fires. You spend a lot of time dealing with problems. And so you get used to arriving on the scene and going, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to solve that problem. Here's how we're going to move forward. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You want to be able to know how to act in a situation, how to resolve a situation, 100%. However, coming onto the scene when there's a conflict, sensing that there's that tension or that conflict, and simply saying, here's what we're going to do. It's kind of like when two kids are not getting along and mom or dad walks into the room and goes, you two better get along. You two better kiss and make up and move on. You don't really like to hear that. It doesn't really feel good. And at the end of the day, the underlying reason or cause for the tension usually is still there. So really, we haven't resolved the conflict or the issue. We've just kind of swept it under the rug. And probably that same conflict or that same clash is going to rear its ugly head again. So the first thing you can do to help really try to melt away the conflict is to be willing to listen and let people vent. So let people explain their side of the story, or what's frustrating them, or why there's an argument or a disagreement or a conflict to begin with, right? And the second part about that is let them vent, right? Even though we sometimes recognize that, you telling me about why you're frustrated doesn't really solve the problem, it is an important piece. When it comes to conflict, there's usually an emotional component. People are usually somewhat emotionally charged, even if they don't seem like it on the surface. And so it's harder to be rational, it's harder to be logical, and to be solutions-oriented if we feel emotional. Because if we're feeling defensive, if we feel like the other person has pissed us off or done us wrong, we're focused on that. We're not focused on how to, amicably resolve this situation. And yet when someone gives us a chance to an ear, bends an ear, and they listen to what we're saying and why we're frustrated, it helps melt away some of that tension, some of that emotion, so that then cooler heads can prevail. And this happens on both sides. So take the time to listen, let people vent, right? As much as possible. We know sometimes that we don't always have time for a 45-minute vent session or anything like that, but as much as possible, let people vent, let them get out their frustration. Then you can move to the next step, which is going to be to ask for a solution or a resolution. So, next thing, try to find some common ground. Remind the people in the conflict that, hey, we are rowing in the same direction. As an organization, we have a common goal. As team members or as people in the same department, we also have a common goal, and we need to continue working on that goal. All right? So you can set that early on as an expectation. Hey, as I listen to both sides, as I hear what's frustrating you guys, I just want to remind you that we are supposed to be rowing in the same direction. I have an expectation that we're not out for to get each other's egos, and this isn't about egos. This is about trying to find the best way to move forward for the organization and for our team to achieve our goals. Set that expectation early on so that we remove the idea that it's about each person winning or losing, and rather about the organization winning by us finding an amicable and professional way to overcome this conflict. And then the third tip is to ask for a solution or a resolution from the people involved. Often, each side will already have an idea of what they want to do, how they want to resolve it, what they think is best, right? And if you as the leader, again, if you come in and just tell them how it's going to go, you're not empowering the people on your team to become problem solvers themselves. And in fact, you're creating a dependency. You're creating a bit of a crutch, because what they're going to do is every time there's a problem, we're going to go to Kirk and ask him to fix the problem. We're going to go to Kirk and ask him to be the mediator or the arbiter who's going to make the decision on sort of who's right and who's wrong and whose idea we're going to go with in the end. And you don't want to get into that as the frontline leader. That's not your job, is to resolve conflicts and squabbles. Yes, you want to be and need to be part of that process in some cases, but you want to go to them and say, all right, we've got this opinion of how we should work on this project or how we should complete this task. How do you think we should go about it? And what are the reasons for suggesting of doing it that way? Okay. What are your suggestions and what are your reasons? What does a resolution in the middle look like? And as much as possible, it's not always going to be completely possible, mind you, as much as possible, get them to both suggest the solutions or resolutions, but also for them to agree and kind of commit to whatever the solution or resolution is, rather than, again, you having to be Judge Judy and hand down the verdict. So those are my 3 suggestions that can help when people are button heads in your department. Be willing to listen to both sides, let people vent a little bit. It removes some of the emotion and helps people be a bit more rational. Remind them that as an organization, we should be rowing in the same direction, right? We have the same goal in mind as a department or as a team, and therefore that takes precedence over anyone's ego. And third, ask them to try to come up with the resolution or the solution rather than simply handing down the verdict. In doing so, you will empower them in the future to take more of a stab at resolving their own conflicts in the future. So, there are some simple tips on conflict management, but maybe you're thinking that you want to go a little bit deeper, you'd like a more robust model, or maybe you'd like to think about some other leadership development topics for your frontline leaders or for anyone in your organization. That's where we can help. We'd love to hear from you, hear what challenges you're dealing with, and how we can help make those a little bit better by equipping, enabling your frontline leaders to be better leaders every day by being more competent, consistent, and capable. So feel free to reach out to us at uniquedevelopment.com. That's our website. You can contact us there. We'd love to have a conversation. And until next time, thank you for listening. We'll see you again.